Godzilla is now in New York City.
Monster 01 and 02, commence the attack.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to a belated episode of Stomp This Way. Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
That's good. That's good. Well, I want to apologize first and foremost for missing last week. Some unforeseen circumstances came up and threw our schedule all out of whack, and we just had to end up pushing the podcast back a week. So I just moved everything back a week, and we'll just continue on as if nothing's changed.
Because nothing has. I don't know what you're talking about.
Nothing has changed. But I had to keep Godzilla Minus Zero on the same week, obviously, because that's a new release movie, but everything else just shifted around it. So anyway, Andrew, but we got a big movie this week. One of our cornerstone movies of the podcast, maybe. What movie would that be?
Oh, maybe get called The Thing?
The Thing. Or as the title card reads, John Carpenter's The Thing. Did John Carpenter have enough cred when this movie came out to get his name above the title card?
Halloween.
He had Halloween. Yes, he had Halloween. I don't know, is one hit enough to get your name above a title card? I think they probably did it not so much to sell John Carpenter's name, but to differentiate it from Howard Hawks' The Thing from Another World. But anyway, so yeah, we're here to talk about The Thing. Of course, we've both seen this movie several times. It is, I've already said, spoiler alert, one of my favorite movies, and I'm excited to get to sit here and dissect it with you. I will say, it's been a few days since we actually sat down and watched it for this viewing, so some of the fine details may escape me, and I do apologize. But
Aaron can't remember something he watched an hour
I can't
ago.
remember what I had for breakfast this morning, much less, a movie I watched a week ago. But anyway, we're trying to work through some difficult times here. So anyway, so let's do some production trivia. This movie began development in the mid-'70s. Tobe Hooper was first chosen as the director, but the producers were unhappy with his concept. They also considered John Landis, but that fell through and the project was put on hold. But with the success of Alien, Universal's interest in sci-fi horror ramped up and the project was resurrected. And then Carpenter was brought on because of his success with Halloween. I think Carpenter was actually kind of thrown about even before that, but they officially brought him on board after Halloween became a big hit in '78. This began filming in August of 1981. Filming lasted about 12 weeks and took place in both refrigerated sets in LA as well as on location shooting in Juneau, Alaska and Stewart, British Columbia. They spent $1.5 million on the creature effects alone after originally only budgeting $200,000 for them. So we got a little out of hand with the creature budgets, but I think it's worth it. Russell was the last character cast. Many actors were considered for the role, including Walken, Bridges, and Nolte, but they ended up settling on Kurt Russell because large part because he had worked with Carpenter before. Russell was paid $400,000 for his role. I think everybody else was paid like $50,000. Ernie Hudson was almost cast as Childs. You know, of course, Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters and the like. Almost cast as Childs before they came across Keith David and decided he was perfect for the role. Carpenter wanted Donald Pleasance as Blair, but went with Wilford Brimley, diabetes, because they wanted an unknown everyman. Could you imagine Donald Pleasance as Blair in this movie when he like loses his mind because he thinks everybody's turning into a thing or whatever?
Yeah.
That would have been amazing. But anyway, they filmed the Norwegian camp scenes towards the end of the shoot because they just reused the American camp that they blew up for the destroyed Norwegian camp at the beginning.
Wow.
Save money. There was a lot of arguments over the ending. Universal wanted a happier, more conclusive ending after some test screenings and the like, but Carpenter preferred a more bleak and ambiguous ending. They did film several endings, but in the end, Carpenter mostly got his way, and we got the ending that we got. Morricone tried his best to recreate the synth scores that Carpenter had composed in the past to use for the film. He ended up recording an hour's worth of music for the movie, while the main theme was composed by Morricone, the kind of bump, the one that I thought was a Carpenter score, which it was basically because Morricone was just trying to copy a Carpenter score. But he did record an hour of music, and his main theme was used, but most of his score was not used. Carpenter and his longtime collaborator Alan Howarth, who Carpenter had worked with, like on the Halloween 2 score and the like, secretly recorded new pieces of music that were used throughout the film.
Wow.
So, wow. And did you know that this got nominated for a Razzie for Worst Score, which we'll talk about it. I think that's very harsh. But anyway, the production took a heavy toll on effects artist Rob Bottin. At one point, he was hospitalized for exhaustion, double pneumonia, and a bleeding ulcer. He lived on the Universal lot for over a year, sleeping on the sets or in locker rooms. He enlisted the help of Stan Winston, another famous effects artist, for some of the designs, primarily the dog thing. The crew originally wanted to shoot in black and white, but the studio shot it down and told them that to just mute the colors. And we'll talk about it maybe a little bit more. But this was, for all of its, all the praise that it gets today, right? This was a box office failure. This was a big flop. And in fact, it really changed the trajectory of Carpenter's career. He's in fact publicly lamented the fact that this movie kind of tanked his career, because he was on board to be the director of that Firestarter movie, with Drew Barrymore. Mm-hmm. He got fired from that. And in fact, he had a multi-picture, I believe a 3-picture deal with Universal. And this was the first picture on that deal. And Universal, after this movie flopped, instead of letting him finish out his contract, was just like, you know what? We're just going to buy you out. We don't want to work with you anymore.
Wow.
And
even though that Firestarter movie didn't really do so.
Yeah, the Firestarter movie wasn't very good. I don't know if he really lost out on much there. Yeah. But he thought he was going to go on to, I think he thought that this movie was going to propel him into, one of the big A-list Hollywood directors. He was kind of on that trajectory after Halloween, and then this movie flopped. And he went on. He did a bunch of mid-tier movies after this, like Christine and all that kind of stuff. But he said that this movie really cost him a lot of opportunities. So kind of sad. But anyway, Andrew, what happened at the box office?
Well, you see, it was released June 25th, 1982, with a budget of $15 million. Not bad.
Not bad.
Open to $3.1 million domestically. Mm-hmm. Not very good.
No. 8th place that weekend. Oof.
That's not very good.
Not very good.
Finished with $19.6 million, barely scraping by.
Yeah. Well, after you factor in marketing, I'm sure it lost significant amount of money.
That's fair. Mm-hmm.
Also, the 42nd highest grossing film of the year overall, which is actually an improvement over Howard Hawks' The Thing, which was 46th, but way different budgets.
Yeah. And release has brought the total to only re-release.
Re-release, yeah.
Oh, it's only brought it back up to 20.
20.9.
It didn't do much better.
No, the re-releases didn't add a whole bunch to that. We actually saw it on the big screen on a
Yeah.
Fathom event, I think, here a few years ago. And, that's kind of fun seeing it on the big screen. But yeah, it was a flop. It was, I mean, not like the worst flop in the history of ever, but I mean, based on what they spent on it and what they
Yeah.
thought they were going to get in return. And, I think it was a combination of multiple factors. One, it was a really bad, crowded release window. It was going up against E.T. I think E.T. was like in its second weekend.
Yeah.
Also a sci-fi movie, obviously a family-friendly sci-fi movie. And I think that they thought in their heads maybe some kind of counter-programming move, but in the end, E.T. just sucked all the oxygen out of the room, obviously.
Yeah.
Poltergeist was still big around the time this came out, obviously. Another Spielberg-ish film. Toby Hooper actually ended up doing that one instead of this one. And, 82 was several just big movies that year that really just kind of took the momentum out of the box office for anything that wasn't big. And, it also critically panned. This got terrible reviews across the board, basically. And people were saying, it was just like a cash grab on ET, which was obviously stupid because it was well into production. Yeah, it came out at basically the same time as ET. So obviously it was in production at the same time as ET. But people were saying it was a cash grab trying to catch on the ET wave. They were saying it was just like a bad ripoff of Alien, the sci-fi horror thing. And people hated a lot of the not people, but the movie critics hated the violence because, horror movies are notoriously have a rough time with critics, especially in the 80s. And especially at this time, you just didn't get that many movies that were as visceral as this one was. And a lot of critics recoiled at it. And yeah, it was rough. It was rough. And it's kind of amazing now that you go back and this being reevaluated and people are like, oh, actually, this is probably one of the greatest horror movies ever made.
Yeah.
We were wrong. Oops. But anyway, let's listen to the original trailer. I believe it's the original trailer. And then we'll come back. We'll list off the cast and crew, and we'll talk all about John Carpenter's The Thing. See you in a bit.
Mayday. Mayday. Anyone hear me? Over. This is U.S. Station 31. You read me? Found something in the ice. We need some help down here. Can anybody hear me? We found something. We found something. We found something.
12 men have just discovered something. For 100,000 years, it was buried in the snow and ice. Now it has found a place to live. Inside. Where no one can see it, or hear it, or feel it.
I know I'm human. Some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to, but it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You guys gonna listen to Gary? He can beat one of those things!
I will say that trailer was a bit alien-esque. You couldn't see the visual, obviously, but the letters at the beginning kind of faded into view, and then talking about like the alien and everything. It did have a good tagline. It said, "Man is the warmest place to hide." But marketing was a big issue too. They didn't know how to market this movie, and they when they realized that their test screenings and stuff were kind of going sideways, they switched up their marketing campaign last minute. And anyway, yeah, just troubled all the way through. But anyway, you ready for the cast and the crew, Andrew?
Go for it.
All right. Well, this was directed by, guess who? John Carpenter, written by Bill Lancaster, based on Who Goes There by John W. Campbell Jr., music by Ennio Morricone, effects by Rob Bottin, and starring Kurt Russell, A. Wilford Diabetes Brimley, T.K. Carter, David Clennon, Keith David, Richard Dysart, Charles Hallahan, Peter Maloney, Richard Masur, Donald Moffat, Joe Polis, and Thomas Waits. And the plot is, more or less, as follows. At the American Research Station in Antarctica, helicopter pilot R.J. McGreedy, station commander Gary, biologist Blair, physician Dr. Copper, mechanic Childs, cook Knowles, radio operator Windows, geologist Norris, helicopter mechanic Palmer, assistant mechanic Bennings, and dog handler Clark, along with the rest of the crew, witness a Norwegian helicopter chasing a husky across the ice. The Norwegians accidentally destroy their own helicopter while trying to shoot the dog. One of the men is killed in the explosion, while the other is shot dead by Gary after opening fire on the Americans. Curious about the bizarre incident, McGreedy and Copper travel to the abandoned Norwegian camp, where they discover the burned remains of a strange creature and evidence that the Norwegians uncovered a buried spacecraft in the ice. The husky is brought back to the American station, where it is placed in the kennel with the other dogs. That night, the dog transforms into an alien creature and begins assimilating the other animals before Childs, McGreedy, and the rest of the crew destroy it with a flamethrower. Blair studies the remains and concludes that the organism can perfectly imitate any living creature it absorbs. After examining the Norwegian research, Blair realizes the alien could spread across the world if it reaches civilization. To prevent anyone from leaving the station, Blair suffers a mental breakdown and destroys the camp's vehicles, communication equipment, and helicopter before Gary locks him in a storage shed. As suspicion grows among the crew, Bennings is assimilated while alone with the creature's remains. He is discovered before the transformation is complete and is burned to death outside the station. When Norris later collapses from an apparent heart attack, Copper attempts to revive him, only for Norris to transform and bite off Copper's arms. McGreedy destroys the creature with the flamethrower before it can escape. Convinced that anyone could already be an imitation, McGreedy takes charge of the station and devises a blood test after discovering that every part of the organism acts as a separate living creature. McGreedy tests the remaining survivors one by one, revealing that Palmer has been assimilated. Palmer transforms into the Thing before McGreedy kills him with a flamethrower. Windows is attacked and assimilated while Gary is tied up by the others, forcing McGreedy to destroy Windows as well. McGreedy, Gary, and Knowles then discover that Blair has escaped from the storage shed. They find that Blair has been assimilated and has secretly constructed a small spacecraft beneath the station in an attempt to escape Antarctica. Realizing there is no way to guarantee the Thing can be stopped if it escapes, McGreedy decides to destroy the station. Knowles disappears while searching for Blair, and Gary is killed by the assimilated Blair beneath the station. McGreedy confronts Blair's final form and destroys it with dynamite, setting off explosions that level the entire outpost. With the station destroyed and no chance of rescue, McGreedy and Childs reunite outside, each uncertain whether the other has been assimilated. As the Antarctic cold closes in, the two men share a bottle of whiskey as credits roll. More or less?
Yeah.
More or less. We can talk about the ending. Was it a bottle of whiskey? That's the great online theory. Yeah, so I think here at the beginning, let's just talk about this. I think John Carpenter is trying to do a delicate balancing act, which is he's trying to both adapt a more faithful version of Campbell's original novel while also trying to do a kind of a remake of Howard Hawks' version. He's trying to, kind of do it. Obviously, he was a big fan of the Howard Hawks film. He featured it in his Halloween movie. That was a big influence on Carpenter growing up. And so he wanted to pay homage to that movie while, again, staying faithful to the source material. And I think he balances that pretty well. He'll include some elements of this movie that are straight up from the Howard Hawks version. And he will also, to the best of his ability, be somewhat faithful to the novella. But from the opening, he does just straight up recreate the title card sequence from the Howard Hawks movie, where the thing, the thing is basically just burned into the
Yeah.
screen, which is a great title card, and he was very wise to keep it. But I think it tells you that he is, again, paying homage to Howard Hawks while, as we see throughout the movie, trying to stay more faithful to the book. And I'll say he makes a lot of changes from the novella, and a lot of them are really smart. For one thing, the novella, there was like 37 people at this station. Now, they weren't all named characters. I don't think we had really any more named characters in the novella than we do in this movie, but there were like 37 people. So he smartly like cuts it down and says, okay, we only have 12 people.
The named characters.
12 people at this outpost. And, McGreedy, they do add some characters, subtract some characters, all of that. McGreedy was really the main character of the novella. Now, he was a meteorologist in the novella. Here, they've rewritten it to where he is the helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
But McGreedy was from the novella. He was kind of described as like a towering giant of a man. And Kurt Russell isn't, I would say that physically imposing, but you can just tell from the opening sequence, he radiates alpha male intensity. Yeah. He is a man.
Even though Gary is the captain.
I know, and that is one great thing I love about this movie. I mean, you can tell from the start that Gary may be the leader on paper of the expedition, but Kurt Russell is the alpha male. He is the one that everyone follows. He takes charge when things go sideways. And Gary just kind of seems unprepared for any sort of disaster.
And they make fun of him with his pea shooter gun.
Yeah. Although I was going to say, he does shoot we open, of course, with the kind of infamous shot of the helicopter chasing the Husky across the snow. And when the Norwegians run out of bullets because this Norwegian couldn't hit. They're like stormtroopers, couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. But they start dropping bombs and end up blowing up their own helicopter. But when the one Norwegian gets out and starts spraying bullets around, Gary does, break out a window and shoot the guy right in the eye. First shot. He's a pretty good crack shot, but yeah.
Nobody listens to Gary, though.
Nobody listens to Gary. Nobody cares about Gary. But yeah, and so we're going to get started pretty quick. The dog is now in the camp.
Yeah.
But because the Norwegians, pull this stunt, they are going to go, I think it is McGreedy and Copper, right? Copper is the doctor, right? They're going to go and go to the Norwegian camp and see what they can, see if they can find out what was going on. But McGreedy takes them over there, and when they go, of course, it's destroyed. They've like burned down their own camp. But they find a partly burnt corpse that looks like it's like two people melded together or something.
Yeah.
And they're going to go in and find some research, and they find a block of ice that looks like they've, taken something out of it. And then they'll take all this back to their camp, and they'll, Copper and Blair I think it's Blair that dissects the burnt body or whatever, and finds that it is, got perfect, like human organs on the inside and blah, blah, blah. At some point, McGreedy and one of the other guys goes out to where the Norwegians had been digging, because they had those videotapes, right? Those recordings.
Yeah.
Where again, they kind of recreate the Howard Hawks movie with the Norwegians standing in the circle around the spaceship and doing that whole thing. And
using thermite,
which again, that was also in the novel, or novella. But they go out there and they find the big hole where the spaceship was, and is, I guess, still destroyed. It's a matte painting, but a pretty good one. And they surmise that based on the age of the ice or whatever, it was buried for 100,000 years. This movie has an opening. The actual opening sequence is basically a sequence that Predator will copy shamelessly a few years later.
Yeah.
Where the spaceship literal flying saucer comes crashing to Earth. And I guess it's worth asking the question, we said it in Predator. People have said it about Predator for a long time. Would that movie be better if you didn't have the opening shot of the spaceship because it kind of ruins the mystery?
Mm-hmm.
Does the opening shot of the spaceship crashing here negatively affect the movie in any way?
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't think it does in terms of ruining any mystery. I mean, it's established, even if you've never read the novella or watched the Howard Hawks movie, it's established pretty early on that whatever is going to haunt these guys is extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is that I think it kind of detracts from, it's a pretty, grounded movie, horrific movie. It's the only scene where I'm like, oh, that felt like kind of, I hate to use the term cheesy, but it is a literal flying saucer, maybe kind of cheesy sci-fi moment that I was like, yeah, maybe could have gone with that and just gone straight to the title card. But yeah, whatever. It is what it is. But
Everybody has their own opinion.
John Carpenter didn't share mine, apparently. I do wonder, probably not, I didn't read anything. I wonder if it was added in reshoots. I wonder if the test audiences were like, where did this thing come from? But I don't know. That wouldn't make, they lay it out pretty clearly later on. But anyway, yeah, so they figure out it's alien. They go back, they dissecting the thing, but the dog's roaming around. We're kind of introduced to all the characters. We have a scene in like their rec room where everybody's hanging out. And I do love there's a scene where Kurt Russell is playing chess with a computer and loses and gets mad and dumps his bottle of scotch or whiskey or whatever in the hard drive or whatever and fries it. That was kind of funny. But yeah, so anyway, what happens next? The dog is one of the guys is gonna throw a fit about the dog roaming around. Yeah. So what was the handler's name?
Clark.
Bart?
Clark.
Clark is gonna go lock the dog up. And, the dogs are like, I don't know about this. And, this is when I don't know how far into the movie this is, 20 minutes, a little over 20 minutes maybe, when the dog things out and tentacles start going everywhere and it grows spider legs and it's going to try to assimilate the other dogs, but Clark hears this going on and, finds it and freaks out and somebody pulls the fire alarm and, they all run down there and see the thing and it tries to escape. It tries to like pull itself up into the ceiling, right?
Yeah.
But Childs gets there and they torch it and, so it is. And then Blair's going to dissect the dog and realize that it was trying to imitate the dogs and it was perfectly capable of perfectly imitating any living creature, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when Blair's going to run his little computer simulation and it tells him like if it reached the mainland, everyone would be infected in 127,000 hours.
Yeah.
But I do think, as we talked about, the great strength of this movie, what this movie really is built on is paranoia, right? Mm-hmm. And Carpenter does a really brilliant thing early on in the movie before all this goes down where you see the dog walk into a room with someone, but you only see the person's shadow. So is implying, of course, that one of the people has been assimilated.
Yeah.
But they have put him in shadow, so you can't tell who it is. Now, I don't think Carpenter has ever officially said who is the shadow belongs to. It was going to be the actor that plays Palmer was going to be the shadow in the scene, but Carpenter wanted it to be ambiguous. And they thought that the guy playing Palmer, his shadow was too recognizable. So they actually got a stuntman in to set in and be the shadow so you couldn't tell who it was.
Yeah.
But we'll see later that Palmer was at some point assimilated. So I think you could assume that probably Palmer here, that's who the dog is walking in on. But yeah, and I do think it's also interesting that the way that they abbreviate the finding of the alien, because the novella starts out with them finding the spaceship and bringing it back and it unthawing. The Howard Hawks movie did the same thing, but Carpenter is going to instead start, after that. He's going to bring us in kind of in the middle after the Norwegians have gone sideways, and then we're going to kind of figure out, it doesn't take too long, but kind of figure out the rest of it, the unburying of the spaceship and all that, it's going to be fed to us later through videotape, and then finding out and making guesses and stuff like that. But yeah, so anyway, after the dog thing freaks out, this is when Blair's going to have his does he have his freak out first or
what?
Actually, I think, does he have his freak out first? And that's when he tries to shoot everybody, and then they go and lock him up in the thing. Is that before they kill Bennings? Or Bennings gets assimilated and then runs outside and they have to torch Bennings?
Yeah, that's way before that.
Is it? Because at one point, Kurt Russell said, "Where's Blair?" So I think that might have happened after. Because Blair destroys the equipment and runs back inside, and that's when everything, with Blair goes
they
down.
say, "Where's Blair?" And that's when they see Blair. He sees Blair get out of the helicopter and then go inside, and then hears gunshots and all that, and everybody was over, hunkered down.
Yeah.
And then he tells, who did he tell? Not the cook guy. The other guy.
Childs.
Yeah, Childs.
Just say it, the other black guy.
Hey.
And they do that whole stunt with the table and like charge him with it, and then get Blair. I think that's after Bennings, because Bennings, Windows is that the comms guy that sees him they're dealing with that. I don't know why they don't just dump this weird thing they found at the Norwegian camp out after the whole episode with the dog, but it unthaws or whatever, and it tries to assimilate Bennings, and Windows walks in on it, and then the thing runs outside, and that's when they catch it and burn it, and then all that stuff with Blair goes down. But anyway, so they're gonna go, and I think McReady's gonna go and with Knowles out to his little cabin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the light was on. And I think was it Windows or one of them had gone outside and found one of McReady's torn up jackets, because, someone was trying to frame him or whatever.
Yeah.
And anyway, Knowles comes back without McReady and is had found the jacket or whatever torn up, and had cut him loose. And then McReady comes back in with dynamite strapped to him and threatens to blow everybody up. And, there's this whole thing and all that. And I think before this, was it after the Bennings thing where Windows kind of lost it, and everyone thought Gary was maybe a thing because the blood had been, they were going to do that blood test, but all the spare blood had been emptied out, and they were going to try to test the blood by mixing getting blood samples from everyone and mixing it with their blood and storage.
Well, it was wondering if it was the doc or Benning. Oh, doc or Gary.
It was either doctor or Gary.
Because, they were the only two that had access to the blood.
Yeah. And so they were Windows got a gun and Gary got a gun, and then McReady took it from him and all that. Yeah. But anyway, after that, then there's a whole thing with McReady and going outside, and he comes back inside and threatens to blow everyone up. And while all this is happening, Norris, I guess is kind of the heavyset guy, has a heart attack, and they go to operate him. What's so funny though is I guess the thing mimicked Norris so perfectly that it even mimicked his clogged arteries, and he dropped dead of a heart attack. And then when the Doc Copper goes to do the defibrillator on him or whatever, it like opens his chest and bites the Doc's arms off.
Mm-hmm.
And so now the Doc is dead, and McCready had to shoot. Who was it that he shot?
Was it Clark?
Yeah, it was Clark. He had to shoot Clark because Clark tried to jump him when everybody thought he was the Thing. Now Clark is dead, and Copper is dead, and
Because Clark was like, you just don't have to shoot me.
yeah, and he did. And yeah, so the thing though, why it has this whole, I mean, probably the most impressive makeup sequence in the movie where the Norris thing opens up and bites the doctor's arm off, and
yeah.
then it kind of goes on a rampage and gets Windows right and like sprays its goo all over Windows or whatever, and starts assimilating him, and McCready has to torch Windows, and then like when he torches the body, the head comes off of it and grows spider legs and goes upside down and crawls around, and they have to torch it. Well, actually, I take it back. That wasn't the Norris thing. The Norris thing did, like, the head popped off, right?
Yeah.
But it's actually, after all that, they're doing the blood test, and he, the novella has a blood test. The novella spent a lot of time on the blood stuff, and they were trying different things of like mixing their blood with their blood reserves, and then like mixing it with the animal blood to see if there was a reaction, and just going through all this before they finally came to the, let's put a hot wire in it or whatever. And Carpenter wisely condensed that. They referenced just mixing their blood samples with the reserve blood, but then they immediately go cut and the blood has been sabotaged or whatever. And here we just get right to the heated wire on the blood samples.
Yeah.
And it is a pretty good thing, a little jump scare when the blood like jumps out, and that's when Palmer transforms and gets Windows and all that, and they have to torch everybody. But anyway, and it is funny, like it is a bit of humor when like as he tests each blood, then it cuts and the guy that he just tests is like standing there with a flamethrower now.
Yeah.
And then Gary, who everybody thought was a thing, is actually not a thing. He's like, if you don't mind, I'd like to be untied now.
I don't want to be here for the rest of the winter.
And so now we're really down to Childs, Knowles, Gary, and McCready, right?
Yeah.
And they're gonna go. They decide to go out to Blair, and they leave Childs watching over the station. Well, when they go out and find that Blair's missing, and the power's cut, and they see Childs running outside, and he kind of disappears from the movie for a bit. But they discover, somehow at some point Blair was gotten, and he's been he dug a tunnel underneath the shed, and he's been building a little spaceship.
Was that tunnel already there?
Was it? I don't think so. I don't know.
Because he was always saying before he got a similar, he was saying guys hear sounds out here.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I really like about this movie is there's a real fine balance between being confusing and leaving things ambiguous.
Yeah.
And I think Carpenter balances that line pretty well. This movie's not going to spoon feed you all the information. In fact, at the end of it, a lot of it is going to remain kind of ambiguous about who was gotten when. I think that's true of really most of the characters. You don't know exactly when they were assimilated, but particularly Blair. What point was he? Because like you said, he said earlier, there's noises out here. So was one of the things already down there doing, digging that tunnel, building that spaceship, and that's how it got to Blair? Or was Blair already assimilated when he was put into the shed? It is a fun question to ponder, and I'm not really sure, what the answer is.
Well, you would think he wouldn't the thing when he destroyed the helicopter and all that.
Yeah, he was not assimilated when he destroyed the helicopter and the tractor and all that. Because the whole point is for the thing to get
out of there,
out of Antarctica into the station. And in the novella, it was a big thing. They were worried about the birds, like the seasonal birds coming in and getting assimilated and then migrating back north or whatever. But here, yeah, same concept. The thing wants to escape. And I say spaceship, I don't really think the thing had any, intention of actually taking that thing into space. I think it just wanted to get to a civilized part of the Earth or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, we're going to go back to the station and into the basement. Childs ran off. We don't know where Childs went. But McReady has decided at this point, listen, we don't know if any of us is the thing or not. We're not leaving alive. We're going to all die, but we're going to blow up this station first and leave nothing for the rescue team. And they go down there, and I think it's Gary that gets got first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Knowles thinks he sees Gary getting dragged away by the Blair thing. And then Knowles gets got. And then McReady has the thing charge at him, and he throws some dynamite at it or something. But anyway, it comes out of the floor, and now it's this giant, grotesque creature thing that's kind of an amalgamation of everything it's tried to assimilate over the course of the movie or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they've rigged it, and he blows it up, and then he goes outside, and Childs kind of reappears, and we don't know where Childs has been, what he's been doing. They know they're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know if either one of them is the thing. Of course, the fan theory is, the movie just kind of plays out like they share a bottle of whiskey and, it ends. The fan theory is, there's a fan theory that McReady put gasoline, because he's kind of sitting next to a barrel of gasoline, I guess.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's kind of doing something like just out of like view, like below the camera when Childs walks up. There's a theory that McReady filled the whiskey bottle with gasoline and then gave it to Childs to see if he would react, because the thing wouldn't know what gasoline tasted like or whiskey. And he knew that Childs was a creature because he didn't react to it. But again, just a theory. It also has holes in it. Like McReady didn't know that Childs was going to walk up on him. So why would he think to fill that whiskey bottle with gasoline?
Mm-hmm.
And from a place, could McReady be assimilated? I mean, we really don't know for sure, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice little... I like the ambiguous ending. I know it didn't test well with audiences at the time, but I think it plays really well. I think it's a bleak movie that deserves a bleak note, and I like it. I like it a lot. But yeah.
It's not a bad movie at all.
It's not a bad movie at all. In fact, it's a great movie,
It's
I think.
great.
Like I said, I think the paranoia is what really stands out. And, they try to stick close to the novel. Now, the novel describes the thing a little differently. In the novella, it did shape shift, but it was like the skin was made up of like blue, looked like blue worms moving across the skin. And it was kind of described as having red eyes and bright red eyes. And like I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, it had some kind of psychic kind of powers or something where it would could give you nightmares and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they stick pretty relatively close to the novella. Now, the novella, I think it makes it pretty clear at the end that they have destroyed the thing. Maybe a little bit of ambiguity about whether the birds were gotten or not, but they stick closer to it. But yeah, I mean, I love the fact that this movie, the paranoia, I think all the actors are doing a great job pulling it off. And I think Kurt Russell is really doing a great job as the lead. All that stuff is really good. And then, yeah, I think, I was reading, I think I mentioned it last time that whatever, William F. Nolan or whatever it is that kind of wrote the foreword to the latest edition of Who Goes There.
Yeah.
And he included his screen treatment. Like when Universal was first shopping this movie around, he wrote a screen treatment for it. And he the one that he unironically said he thought was better than Carpenter's version. And his version was basically, they're in Antarctica, a spaceship crashes. They go out or a spaceship doesn't even crash, a spaceship lands. They go out to investigate. The aliens possess them, and these aliens take possession of your body, like I said, and they basically transfer bodies. And every time they transfer bodies, they just leave like an empty husk. And this goes on for a while. And anyway, in the end, it turns out the aliens were just trying to recover their spaceship that crashed a long time ago. They had no interest in like world domination and stuff. So there were no like grand, the stakes were a lot lower.
Mm-hmm.
It got really weird sci-fi stuff at the end within the spaceship and stuff. And another thing that they changed is Nolan made it a co-ed station. So there were a lot of men and women and men and women, and there were romantic relationships and all that. And I think, I think it works better. I mean, you can complain about the lack of diversity, I guess, but I think the movie works better with that screen treatment, by the way, was awful. And I'm so glad that they didn't make that version of it. But I think the movie works better as an all men cast. I mean, and even Howard Hawks' version had men and women in it. But I think it helps because I think, especially when you introduce romantic relationships into the equation, I think it really complicates the paranoia vibe of it, because with it being all men, and they're not having any romantic relationships, they don't have any reason to like blindly trust each other. I mean, it seems like they're kind of at each other's throats even before the thing arrives. And I think that really amps up the tension. If you introduce like romantic relationships and stuff, then you get into like, oh, baby, I don't care if you're one of those things or not. I love you anyway. And, that kind of stuff. And I think that just would really kind of kill the vibe.
Aaron hates love stories anyways, though.
I struggle with most love stories in movies. But, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But, no, I think this is a great movie. I think I'm shocked that it had such bad critical reception at the team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand why some of them wouldn't like it, especially at the time, and maybe just, again, poor timing with its release date, but it's a legit great movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they couldn't recognize that is quite shocking. I mean, it is a real like cornerstone of the horror genre. And like I said, from a technical, I have a soft spot, a lot of nostalgia for Halloween. And if I were ranking my favorite Carpenter movies, Halloween would probably just edge out this movie. But just in terms of, from a objective technical perspective, I think this is probably Carpenter's best made movie that he did, most impressive movie that he made. And it's such a shame that it was also the one that killed his career. I mean, he went on to have a career, obviously, but not the career that he wanted.
Yeah.
But anyway, you want to move on to creature design?
Sure.
All right. Well, that's the big part of this movie, right? Is Robert Bottin and his team and what they were able to create, and just all the different stuff with the dog and the spider legs popping out and all the little tentacles and the face opening up, like flowering open and all that is such good work. We have, like the Norris thing where the chest opens up with these big teeth and all that. And that's pretty wild. And then the head comes off and makes little spider legs and it's upside down. And then the little eye stalks pop out of it. That looks so good. The Bennings thing where it's like mostly human, but the hands are still all like monstrous or whatever when it catches it. That's pretty cool. And then of course the big finale, the monster, when it goes full monster form, and it's just like this monstrous kind of like towering thing with like a dog head, and then another dog head like pops out, and it's just
amalgamation of every other person.
All these gross things. And do you think we ever see anything resembling the creature's true form? Does the creature even have a true form?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it reverts back to spider legs a lot, which kind of makes me wonder, is the original form some kind of spider-esque creature? But I also wonder, was there ever really like original form, or is it just kind of an amorphous blob, and it's kind of, true form that just kind of takes the shape of whatever? And I think another question that people have about this movie, was this the alien? I don't know if it is a question or people just assume what I'm about to say, but was the alien, did the spaceship belong to this alien? Was it the pilot of the spaceship? Or were other aliens transporting this thing and it broke free and caused the spaceship to crash?
Was it a prisoner ship?
Yeah.
That,
I think most people assume that, yeah, maybe they were transporting it, maybe as a prisoner, or maybe like again, kind of an alien-esque thing where the engineer pilot was transporting these xenomorphs and they got free. Was it one of those kind of situations? I think most people kind of assume it was one of those kind of situations. I don't remember if the movie we're watching next week explains it or not.
What was it in the ice? Do you remember?
What was it when they unthawed it?
Yeah.
Well, we don't know, right? Because it's already unthawed when when we find out about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was that thing that they burned, but it looked like it was already in the process of trying to mimic something.
Next movie next week, they've taken that's the prequel, isn't it? And
oh, you're saying what did they unthaw from the ice?
Yeah,
I don't remember. I'll have to revisit next week. And
yeah,
I've only seen that movie one time. It's been. I
can't remember what they showed. I don't remember in the ice.
Yeah, I don't remember what kind of form it had when it came out of the ice, but yeah, we'll have to. Revisit that because the novella, it did have like a default. I mean, at least you think. I guess it could have also borrowed that, but it did kind of have like a default form that like kind of this blue worm, kind of red eye, kind of amorphous creature thing. But yeah, so I think that is an interesting question to ponder. But no, they did a great job. I know reading about all the stuff, a lot of mayonnaise and like KY jelly and all kinds of, like a tentacle and all the ways that they pulled off the tentacles and the squirting goo and all that was it was a rough job, but they did a great job. And I think it holds up really well. I mean, getting into effects overall, I think the movie holds up overall. I mean, a lot of on-location shooting, in Juneau and in British Columbia. I mean, a lot of beautiful location shots, them walking in the snow and, the helicopter flying around, the mountains in the background, all that kind of stuff. And then, the interior sets, which were refrigerated sets in LA, also look great. I think they really make you feel like you're really in some kind of Antarctic camp. And I think they did a great job with the interior design and all that. No complaints there. There's a couple of matte paintings, and
they're pretty good.
They're good. I mean, you can tell they're matte paintings.
If you're Aaron.
I mean, you can tell they're matte paintings, but they're good matte paintings. I mean, there is a brief stop motion sequence towards the end of the movie when he's setting up the dynamite and like the big tentacles are like coming up out of the floorboards, like, waving around. There's a bit of stop motion. It's good stop motion.
Yeah.
It's brief, so it doesn't really like stick with you or anything. But again, it is stop motion. It looks a little bit different from the rest of the movie. But overall, though, I think great sets, great location, cool explosions.
Yeah.
And then of course the creature looks great. So no problems there. And then score, again, I was kind of surprised because my memory was Carpenter did score this, but no, Morricone is the credited composer. But it is a John Carpenter score. It's just a synthesizer, very lo-fi, kind of, 4 or 5 beats kind of thing.
Yeah.
Got nominated for a Razzie, which I think is ridiculous. I mean, it's not a big grand epic score, but I think this score perfectly complements the movie that Carpenter was trying to make. And again, I mean, the fact that this movie was nominated for any Razzies is absolutely ridiculous. This movie should have been nominated for Oscars, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But anyway, Andrew, you want to do some final thoughts?
Sure.
Why don't you go for it?
This movie is a good movie. It's one of the greats.
Yes.
But it was not very good reciprocated back in the day.
No.
And it just came out in the wrong time period.
Yeah.
I think if it came out in like even maybe a few months ahead or behind what it was, it might have probably would have got at least better audience with.
I think if you
Bros.
move this to the late 80s,
Mhm.
post Terminator, post Predator, I think people would have really have warmed to this movie. Now, I think Predator might not even be what it was without this movie. I think Predator borrows a lot from this movie.
Yeah.
but yeah, I think if you moved it to the late 80s when more of these kinds of movies were being made, the critics may not have loved it, but I
Yeah.
think the general audiences would have accepted it more.
But even if it was a few months after the big movies that it was trying
After
to compete,
E.T. and all that, yeah.
I think it would have still had a better audience thing, better, a budget box office.
Yeah.
Maybe wouldn't have destroyed Carpenter's career.
Yeah, because it was going up. Like I forgot to mention, but I mentioned Poltergeist, E.T.,
Yeah.
but it came out the same weekend that Blade Runner did. And Blade Runner also kind of a notorious flop, but it opened better than this. It opened at like 6 million and like second place that weekend.
Mm.
And then Wrath of Khan also came out that year, another big sci-fi, seminal sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
So it just had a lot of competition.
But yeah, acting is great in this movie. Effects are amazing, how they did everything with the creature
Yeah.
and all the other things going on. And, I think it was pretty good. And I think I'll give this movie an A.
Yeah. Listen, I think this is one of my favorite movies. Every time I revisit it, I'm kind of like taken aback by how good it is and how well they pulled off, especially how well they pulled off the creature effects. But yeah, I think again the paranoia aspect of it is really great and really keeps you invested in the movie, even when there's not a whole lot of monster stuff on screen. I think it's paced really well. And like I said, just the makeup effects and the puppetry and all that are amazing in this movie. Really top notch. You're going to be hard pressed to find a movie without CGI, pre-CGI that pulls off better monsters than this movie does. And I think it may be Carpenter's crowning achievement. Like I said, again, if I was ranking my personal favorite Carpenter movies, Halloween would probably still edge this one out. But I think what he was able to do here on location, he's talked about how hard of a shoot this was in the snow, in the elements. But the way they pulled that off, the cast, particularly Kurt Russell, carrying this movie, but the whole cast really. And yeah, I think it's, and the way that he was able to both readapt the original novella and stay more faithful to it while also kind of doing a remake of the Howard Hawks version.
Mm-hmm.
I think he balances that incredibly well. And yeah, I think it is a great movie. I'm going to give it an A+.
A happy moment.
This is, I think, one of the best movies we've done for the podcast, and I love any chance we get to revisit it. So, yeah.
Mm.
But anyway, some news, some sad news again. Unfortunately, this happened right after we recorded our previous podcast. But Kaylee Hoddle, who genre fans know her as the young actress in Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla Kong New Empire. She tragically passed away in a car wreck. She was, I think, 18 years old. So very tragic, very sad, and, untimely passing. Very rough. Very rough. So we're kind of going through that with our own extended family at the moment. But yeah, so, rest in peace. Prayers to her family. Very, very tragic. I did want to cover, there were, speculation about would we get any Godzilla content at San Diego Comic-Con this year? Were they going to release a trailer for Supernova? I kind of figured they weren't. I figured they'd want to wait till Godzilla Minus Zero comes out to really ramp up the marketing for Supernova, and I was right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'll see a Supernova trailer until Dune 3. But there really was no major news of Godzilla coming out of San Diego Comic-Con. I did want to share that we did get an email from a little, like, one of those compiling websites, millionpodcast.com, and we are ranked 12th in their top 40 kaiju podcast rankings.
Wow.
So finally, some recognition.
Recognition
Go
around
us.
here.
Go us. You can check out that whole list at millionpodcast.com. And they have, their top 40 kaiju podcasts ranked on there. And look at us go.
I thought it would have been in the mid 30s.
Yeah. I would have guessed a lot. I don't know how they came up with those ratings. I don't know what metrics they used, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
I don't care. So anyway, thank you guys for making us the 12th best kaiju-centric podcast. But other than that, next week we will be doing, assuming no more delays, we will be doing the 2011 film, The Thing. And then we'll be following that up with The Water Horse and then all kinds of other monster movies to follow that. But anyway, I think that's all we got for you this week. Andrew, did you have anything else?
No, I don't have anything else.
Nope, not really. Again, I want to thank you for joining us for a review of The Thing, one of my favorite movies. But don't forget that you can always contact us at 1954@gmail.com.
You can find our website at www.stomp3.wordpress.com.
That's right. And you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, all at Stomp This Way. And again, next week, the 2011 remake of The Thing. Check that out. No, remake, prequel, whatever the heck it is.
It's pretty cool.
It's a prequel. It was a secret prequel, but it is a prequel.
Yeah.
Spoiler. But check that out and join us again next week. And as always, I'm Aaron.
I'm Andrew.
And we'll see you next time.